protecting our kids as best as we can, and also understanding the role that they play in this really historical family.
When the formal decree arrived at King Charles's desk on a cold January morning, no one in the room spoke. The document was simple, just 3 pages of carefully worded legal language, but its implications were seismic. With a single signature, Charles was about to rewrite the rules of royal succession in a way that would send shockwaves through the entire family. The rule was straightforward, almost elegant in its simplicity. Any child who wishes to remain in the line of succession must be raised full-time in the United Kingdom under direct royal supervision. No exceptions, no special circumstances, no compromises.
They would not respond to that kind of questioning. They would have ignored it.
And the moment palace officials began notifying relevant parties, everyone understood exactly who this targeted. Archie and Lilibet, Harry and Meghan's 2 children, born and raised thousands of miles away in California, living lives completely disconnected from royal traditions and palace protocols, would instantly fall outside the requirement. They had never attended a royal event without cameras, never lived within the palace structure, never been shaped by the daily rhythms of monarchy. And now, with one stroke of the king's pen, their places in the line of succession hung by a thread so thin it might as well have already been cut. Before we dive deeper into how Meghan reacted when she learned about this devastating decision and what it means for her family's future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story is developing rapidly, and you don't want to miss a single update as this royal crisis unfolds. What happened next behind closed doors in Montecito will shock you. And the palace's response to Meghan's fury reveals just how far the monarchy is willing to go to protect itself. The decision had been building for months, though few outside Charles's inner circle knew it was coming. Ever since his coronation, the new king had been quietly working with constitutional advisors and senior palace officials to modernize and streamline the monarchy. The goal was clear: create a leaner, more focused institution that could survive the challenges of the 21st century. An institution where every member pulled their weight, where resources weren't stretched thin, supporting distant relatives who contributed nothing, where the line of succession reflected actual commitment to duty rather than just accidents of birth. The problem, as Charles's advisors saw it, was that the current system was bloated and unclear. There were dozens of people technically in the line of succession who had no real connection to royal life, who lived abroad or pursued private careers, who took the prestige of their positions without accepting any of the responsibilities. And at the top of that problematic list were Harry and Meghan's children. Archie, born in 2019, and Lilibet, born in 2021, held positions in the line of succession despite living their entire lives in California. They attended private schools in Montecito. They had American accents. They knew more about Disneyland than about Buckingham Palace. And while Harry and Meghan insisted they were raising their children with an awareness of their royal heritage, the reality was that Archie and Lilibet had no practical connection to the institution their great-grandfather now led. For Charles, who had spent his entire life preparing for the throne, who had watched his mother dedicate 7 decades to duty, this felt wrong. Royal privilege should come with royal responsibility. Titles should mean service, not just status. And if Harry and Meghan wanted to raise their children as private American citizens, as they had every right to do, then those children shouldn't occupy spaces in the succession that might one day be needed by working royals. The first rule, requiring full-time UK residents under royal supervision, was designed to address this directly. It wasn't retroactive. Palace lawyers were careful about that. No one currently in the line of succession would be forcibly removed. But going forward, any child who wanted to maintain their position would need to demonstrate genuine commitment to royal life. That meant living in Britain. That meant education within institutions the palace could influence. That meant growing up immersed in the traditions, protocols, and expectations that shaped working royals. Charles signed the decree on January 12th at 3:47 p.m. GMT. Within hours, notifications went out through official channels to all relevant family members. William received his copy at Kensington Palace and reportedly nodded in approval. Anne, reading hers at Gatcombe Park, sent back a brief message. About time. Edward and Sophie, informed at Bagshot Park, expressed quiet support. But the notification that mattered most was the one that arrived in California at 7:47 a.m. PST, delivered by secure email to Harry's private secretary. Meghan was having breakfast with the children when Harry's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, saw the palace email, and his expression shifted in a way Meghan immediately recognized. Something was wrong. Harry read the message twice, his face growing paler with each paragraph. Then he looked up at Meghan and said quietly, "We need to talk. Privately." They went to Harry's study, leaving the children with their nanny. Meghan knew before Harry even began explaining that this would be bad. She had spent years learning to read the specific brand of tension that entered Harry's body when something came from the palace. This was different from normal family drama. This was institutional, official, irreversible. "Charles has signed new succession rules," Harry said, his voice flat with barely controlled emotion. "Any child in the line of succession must be raised full-time in the UK under royal supervision." Meghan stared at him, processing. "When does it take effect?" "Immediately. It's already official. Archie and Lily—" Harry's voice cracked slightly. "They don't qualify. They're being told they need to move to the UK if they want to stay in the line of succession." The silence that followed was absolute. Meghan didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at Harry as the full implications crashed over her like a wave. This wasn't just about titles or positions on some ceremonial list. This was about belonging, about whether her children would be recognized as part of the family they were born into, about whether the years of pain and sacrifice had been for nothing. When Meghan finally spoke, her voice was deadly calm. The kind of calm that comes before an explosion. "They're erasing our children." Harry shook his head. "It's not specifically about them. It's a general rule about all children in the succession." "Don't!" Meghan cut him off sharply. "Don't do that. Don't defend them. Don't tell me this isn't targeted when you know exactly who this rule affects first." She stood, pacing the study, her hands shaking. "We leave because the institution is toxic. We build a life here to protect our family."
This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife's.
"We do exactly what we said we'd do, raise our children with privacy and normalcy. And now they punish us for it by telling us our kids don't belong anymore?" Harry didn't respond. He couldn't. Because deep down he knew she was right. The rule might be phrased generally, but its impact was specific. Archie and Lilibet were the only children of senior royals living outside the UK. They were the only ones who would immediately fall under this requirement. The rule had been written with them in mind, whether Charles would admit it or not. Meghan pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. "I'm calling the lawyers, right now, because if they think they can just rewrite the rules to exclude our children without consequences, they're about to learn exactly how wrong they are." But the first rule was just the beginning. 2 days later, before Meghan had even finished processing the residency requirement, a second decree came through. This one was shorter, but somehow even more devastating. Only the children of active working royals shall maintain their positions in the line of succession. Children of former working royals or non-working royals shall be removed from succession lists upon implementation of this decree. The language was bureaucratic, almost clinical, but the message was unmistakable. Harry and Meghan had stepped back from royal duties in 2020. They had chosen freedom over obligation, privacy over service. And now, 4 years later, that choice had come full circle. Their children no longer qualified under the new system. They weren't being forcibly removed. The palace was careful to frame it differently. They were being administratively relocated to a non-succession status pending review of their parents' working royal designation. Legal jargon that meant the same thing. Archie and Lilibet were out. When this second notification arrived, Meghan didn't cry. She didn't shout. Instead, according to those close to her, she went completely silent for nearly an hour. Just sat in her office, staring at the official palace letterhead, reading and rereading the words that felt designed to hurt her specifically. Harry found her there eventually, sitting in the dark, the only light coming from her computer screen. "This is William," Meghan said without looking up. "Charles might have signed it, but William pushed for it. This is him cutting us off completely." Harry didn't argue. He had been thinking the same thing. His brother had made it clear over the past few years that there was no path back for Harry and Meghan, no reconciliation that would restore what had been lost. William saw them as threats to the institution, as liabilities that needed to be managed, not family members who deserved accommodation. And now William was preparing to be king himself one day. He was thinking generations ahead, about what the monarchy would look like under his reign, and in that vision, there was no space for the California Sussexes and their American children. "We fought for those titles," Meghan said, her voice hollow. "When Archie was born and they tried to deny him a title. When Lilibet was born and they played games with her name. We fought because we believed our children deserved to be recognized, and now they're taking it all away anyway." She finally looked at Harry, her eyes red but dry. "They waited. They let us believe there was still a connection, still a place for us. And then they rewrote everything to make sure there wasn't. But the palace wasn't finished. 3 days after the second decree, a third development emerged. This one quieter, more procedural, but somehow more unsettling than the explicit rule changes. A formal clarity review. According to the official notice, the review was standard procedure following significant changes to succession protocols. A small team would examine all relevant documentation to ensure consistency, accuracy, and compliance with the new requirements. Birth certificates, medical records, residency history, parental status confirmations. Everything would be verified, cross-referenced, and certified. It sounded routine, administrative, the kind of thing that happens in large institutions when rules change. But Meghan knew better. She had worked in entertainment long enough to recognize when standard procedure was actually a targeted investigation. "They're looking for something," she told Harry after reading the review notification. "They're not just updating records. They're digging." Harry frowned, uncomfortable. Looking for what? Everything is documented. The births were registered properly. The paperwork is all correct. "That's not the point," Meghan said sharply. "The point is they're creating doubt. They're sending a message that maybe there's something questionable about our children's status. Maybe there's something that doesn't add up. They're planting seeds." And she was right to be concerned. Because the team assembled for this clarity review wasn't composed of junior staffers or administrative clerks. According to sources within the palace, the review team included constitutional experts, legal historians specializing in succession law, and senior advisors with decades of experience navigating royal protocols. This was the kind of team you assembled when you expected to find problems, or when you wanted to make absolutely sure nothing could be challenged later. The review's scope was extensive. It included examination of all documentation related to Archie and Lilibet's births, verification of their legal status under both UK and US law, confirmation of their parents' marital status, and working royal designation at the time of birth, and assessment of their current residency and its implications for succession eligibility. To the palace, this was due diligence. To Meghan, it felt like harassment. Like the institution was trying to find any possible reason to exclude her children beyond the rule changes they had already implemented. Behind the scenes, palace insiders insisted the review was necessary. When you change succession requirements as significantly as we have, one senior advisor explained to a trusted journalist, you need to make absolutely certain that every detail is correct. The last thing anyone wants is a legal challenge years from now because someone's documentation wasn't properly verified. But others within the palace were less diplomatic. This is about closing loopholes, one source said bluntly, making sure that Harry and Meghan can't find some technicality to keep their children in the succession after everything else has been done to exclude them. While Charles signed decrees and palace officials conducted reviews, another force was rising behind the scenes: Prince William. For years, William had operated in his father's shadow, the heir waiting patiently for his turn, learning the institution but not yet commanding it. But sources close to the palace say the dynamic has shifted dramatically since Charles became king. William is no longer just the future. He's becoming the protector of that future, and he's prepared to make decisions his father might hesitate over. Those who work with William describe him as focused to the point of ruthlessness when it comes to protecting the monarchy's long-term stability. He has watched the institution weather scandal after scandal, crisis after crisis. He saw what his parents' divorce did to public perception. He lived through the aftermath of Diana's death and the questions it raised about royal coldness. He witnessed his grandmother navigate the Andrew scandal, the Harry and Meghan departure, and all the other fractures that threatened to destabilize the crown. And William has decided, according to those close to him, that when his time comes, the monarchy will be stronger, leaner, and completely focused on service. There will be no room for people who want royal privilege without royal duty. No space for family members who attack the institution publicly while still claiming connection to it. No tolerance for the kind of chaos that Harry and Meghan have created. William will cut a limb to save the body, one advisor said. He doesn't see this as vengeance or cruelty. He sees it as necessary surgery. The monarchy can't survive if it's constantly defending itself against attacks from within. And in William's view, Harry and Meghan represent exactly that kind of internal threat. They left the institution but didn't fully separate from it. They gave explosive interviews attacking the family while still using their royal titles. They built a brand around their royal connection while refusing to perform royal duties. William sees this as having it both ways, taking the benefits without the responsibilities, and he's determined to end it. Sources say William was instrumental in pushing for both succession rule changes. He argued to his father that the monarchy needed clarity about who was in and who was out, that Archie and Lilibet, raised in California with no real connection to royal life, shouldn't occupy positions that might someday be needed by working royals' children. That the institution couldn't afford to maintain pretense of inclusion for people who had actively chosen exclusion. Charles, according to these sources, was initially reluctant, not because he disagreed philosophically, but because he worried about the optics and the inevitable accusations of cruelty toward his grandchildren. But William was insistent, and increasingly William's voice carries weight equal to or greater than his father's when it comes to the monarchy's future direction. The king thinks in years, one palace insider explained. William thinks in generations. And when you're thinking that far ahead, you can't afford sentimentality about people who have proven they won't serve the institution. The message William is sending, both within the family and to Harry and Meghan directly, is unmistakable. The monarchy is moving forward, with or without you, and if you're not contributing, you don't belong. As the rule changes settled into place and the clarity review progressed, Meghan began assembling her response. And true to form, it wasn't quiet or conciliatory. It was combative. Sources close to Meghan say she has consulted with lawyers in both California and the United Kingdom, determined to explore every possible avenue for challenging what she sees as a targeted attack on her children. Her primary focus is the 1701 Act of Settlement, the centuries-old legislation that established the current rules of succession. Meghan believes, according to those familiar with her thinking, that Charles' new requirements may violate the spirit, if not the letter, of that historic act. The Act of Settlement was designed to ensure Protestant succession and to clarify who could and couldn't inherit the throne. But it says nothing about residency requirements or parental work status. Meghan's legal team is exploring whether adding these new requirements constitutes an unauthorized modification of succession law, something that would technically require parliamentary approval. It's a long shot, legally. Constitutional experts almost universally agree that the monarchy has considerable latitude in defining succession protocols as long as they don't contradict explicit statutory requirements. But Meghan isn't pursuing this because she expects to win. She's pursuing it because she refuses to accept what's happening without a fight. This is about principle for her, one source close to Meghan explained. It's about refusing to let them erase her children without consequences. Even if the legal challenge doesn't succeed, it forces the palace to defend their actions publicly. It puts their cruelty on record. But there's danger in this approach. Legal battles involving the monarchy don't stay contained. They become public spectacles. They require evidence and testimony. They force all parties to go on record with statements that can't be taken back later. And they create permanent rifts that can never be healed. If Meghan moves forward with legal action, Harry will be forced into an impossible position. He'll have to choose, publicly and irrevocably, between supporting his wife and maintaining any remaining connection to his family. Standing with Meghan means standing against the institution in court, under oath, with the entire world watching. It means burning every bridge back to his former life. Standing with his family means betraying the woman he married, the mother of his children, the person he has repeatedly said is more important to him than anything else. There's no middle ground, no way to satisfy both sides. The choice itself is a kind of cruelty. Those who know Harry say he's aware of what's coming and that the pressure is immense. He left the royal family to protect his wife and children from exactly this kind of institutional pressure. But now that protection requires him to go to war with his own blood relatives, to attack his father and brother publicly, to risk his children's last remaining connection to the family they were born into. Harry is trapped, one former palace staffer who remains friendly with the Sussexes said. He can't defend Meghan without destroying his family relationships completely. But he can't not defend her without destroying his marriage. There's no good choice, only terrible ones. And the palace knows this. Some within Charles's circle believe the rule changes were designed specifically to force this moment, to make Harry choose once and for all where his loyalty lies, to end the ambiguity and establish clear boundaries about who is family and who isn't. Now, months after the initial decrees, the crisis sits at a crossroads. On one side, the monarchy has reshaped itself, rules rewritten to exclude anyone not fully committed to royal service. A clarity review digging through every detail of Archie and Lilibet's status. King Charles holding firm on his vision for a streamlined institution. Prince William preparing to inherit a throne protected from the chaos that has defined recent years. The palace has stopped bending, stopped accommodating, stopped pretending that Harry and Meghan's departure doesn't have permanent consequences. On the other side stands Meghan, furious and determined. She sees the rule changes as deliberate erasure of her children. She sees the Clarity Review as institutional harassment. She sees every palace action as confirmation that she was right to leave, that the institution is cruel and discriminatory, that fighting it is the only option. She has lawyers reviewing every possible challenge. She has begun documenting everything for potential legal action. She has made clear to those around her that she will not accept this quietly, that there will be consequences for what the palace has done. And caught between these two immovable forces is Harry, a prince without a kingdom, a son watching his family close ranks against him, a husband trying to protect his wife while understanding that protection might require destroying his last connections to his past. A father who must decide whether his children's royal heritage matters enough to fight for, even if that fight poisons everything else. Sources say the pressure on Harry has been building for months, that he feels pulled in directions that cannot coexist, that he knows decisions are coming that will define the rest of his life and his children's lives. Because if Meghan pursues legal action, everything changes. The monarchy will be forced to respond in court with evidence and testimony. Private conversations will become public record. Family conflicts will be litigated in front of the world. Secrets that have been carefully guarded for generations might be exposed in the process of defending succession decisions. And once that begins, there is no going back, no reconciliation, no possibility of healing. The break becomes permanent, codified in legal documents and court rulings. Meghan knows this, Harry knows this, and the palace knows this. Which is why, according to multiple sources, there have been quiet attempts at backchannel communication in recent weeks. Not official negotiations, but careful conversations through intermediaries. Messages designed to test whether there's any possibility of resolution before everything explodes. The palace's position, conveyed through these channels, is straightforward. Accept the new succession rules. Stop fighting. Let Archie and Lilibet live as private citizens without royal status. In exchange, maintain dignity for everyone involved. No public battles, no legal challenges, no continued media warfare. Move on. Meghan's position, conveyed back through the same channels, is equally clear. Restore the children's full status in the line of succession. Acknowledge that the rule changes were targeted and wrong. Provide formal apology for institutional behavior toward her and her family. Guarantee that Archie and Lilibet will be treated as equal members of the royal family regardless of where they live. The positions are irreconcilable. Both sides have drawn lines they won't cross. And the intermediaries who attempted these quiet conversations have reported back that compromise appears impossible, which means the crisis is heading toward its inevitable conclusion. Either Meghan backs down, accepting that her children will not be part of the royal succession and that the palace has won, or she moves forward with legal challenges, forcing a public battle that will consume everyone involved and permanently fracture what remains of Harry's relationship with his family. Palace insiders say they are prepared for the latter, that legal teams have been briefed, that evidence has been compiled, that the institution is ready to defend its decisions in court if necessary. They believe they will win any legal challenge because the law gives the monarchy broad discretion over succession protocols. But they also know that winning legally doesn't mean winning publicly, that the optics of the crown fighting to exclude two small children will be terrible regardless of the legal merits. Meghan's team, meanwhile, is preparing for a fight they know will be brutal. They're under no illusions about the odds of legal success. But they believe the public battle itself has value, that exposing the palace's actions will damage the institution's reputation, that forcing the monarchy to defend excluding mixed-race children will reveal uncomfortable truths about who the institution really serves. And Harry sits in the middle of all this, knowing that within weeks or months, he'll be forced to make choices that will define everything, that his children's futures, his marriage, his relationship with his blood family, all of it hangs on decisions that have no good options, only impossible ones. This is the moment before the explosion, the quiet before the storm breaks completely, the pause before decisions become irreversible. King Charles has remade succession rules to exclude children raised outside royal supervision. Prince William has positioned himself as the protector of an institution that will not tolerate threats from within. Meghan has assembled lawyers and arguments, preparing for a battle she may not win, but refuses to avoid. And Harry, caught between the family he was born into and the family he chose, must decide which one he's willing to lose. Because that's what this moment demands. Not compromise, not reconciliation, not a middle path that satisfies everyone. Just a choice, cold, brutal, and permanent. The storm is coming, the break is inevitable, and when it happens, when the legal challenges are filed and the palace responds and the battle becomes public, there will be no more pretending, no more careful diplomacy, no more hope that somehow, someday this family might heal. Just the reality that some fractures go too deep to repair, that some choices have consequences that last forever, and that sometimes love isn't enough to bridge the gap between people whose worlds have become incompatible. The monarchy is preparing to move forward without Harry, Meghan, and their children. Meghan is preparing to fight back with every tool available, and Harry is preparing for the hardest decision of his life. What happens next won't be quiet. It won't be gentle, and it will reshape the royal family in ways no one can predict. What do you think about King Charles's decision to change the succession rules? Is this a necessary modernization of the monarchy or a cruel targeting of Harry and Meghan's children? And do you think Meghan's potential legal challenge will succeed? Or is this a fight she can't win? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for continued coverage of this developing crisis. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates as this royal battle unfolds. The truth about what's really happening behind palace doors is more shocking than anyone imagined. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.